Good evening, everybody. I'm CJ Miller. I'm in Shreveport, Louisiana. Across the Red River is beautiful Bossier City. Uh, and come check us out. As I begin this video, the time is 11:11 p.m. I don't know, some sort of funky thing about 11:11 for a while. It was everybody make a wish or something. It was kind of like pulling a wishbone out of a chicken or something. That particular time of day. Okay. Hang on. Trying to flip my camera. There we go. Straight ahead, that beautiful bit of light, the building that they're working on, that's going to be... Our sprinkler system makes weird noises. That's going to be the state building. They're working on it. They're building it. The first part of it was to basically strip everything down to the rails, the I-beams. And then they came in and approved this particular phase. So I'm excited to see the finished product, and I guess it's going to be a while. But mostly I'm interested in knowing if it's going to, as of yet, I can't see it. But there was a particular artist rendering of the outside of the building, and it was supposed to have some ledges that kind of went around the building that kind of sloped down between a couple of the floors. Just a real artsy kind of design. And I wonder if that's still part of the architectural design. And when it gets done, I will try to find the artist rendering of the building. I'm gonna maybe try to get it and save it, and then when it's done, go take pictures and see how much of it looks like it's supposed to look. Our apartments here look close enough to the artist rendering of what they were supposed to look like. I like them. I like living here well enough. There are some areas that could use improvement. There are some areas that have been less than what is reasonably expected. There's a 3.5-foot pool, and of course, for the longest time, it's sat in neglect, water in it and everything like that. There was the company was iTech that built them, and they were also doing the management, and they were extremely neglectful for that first year or so when I first moved in. I may do with it because it's a nice apartment. And anytime you live in an apartment complex, it's going to be, you have to, get used to your community and assimilate into it and everything like that. So I'm familiar with that. So I know that there's people that moved here that are used to living in houses, not right next to each other in apartments. And you do hear things through the walls and stuff like that, That's just apartment living for you. But, especially some of these are fine, but some of the other apartments, some of the other buildings that I've lived in that have been remodeled. Sometimes they're remodeled, you really can hear through those, paper thin walls, the old cliche, but that's apartment living, When I was growing up, we lived in these apartments, Villa Marquis. We lived upstairs, and we could hear through the floor, we could hear everything that was happening downstairs. And I mean, sometimes it was more entertaining than a TV show, and I'm pretty sure they heard us too. That's just apartment living. So, let's see what else. That's that building. There are trees in the way now. Through the trees. Let's walk up here. Let's walk up this hill. This used to be, you'd walk down this slope, and this was all like just empty, abandoned houses and it was habitat for homeless people and crackheads, and it wasn't all bad, you know. Like there, it was pretty seedy, but nevertheless, I was down here in my late teens, you know, uh, involved in things that I should not have been involved in. But it was also, it was just a party. This lot that I'm focusing at, not this one right here, but the one right across from that street. That's people used to gather there and just hang out and wheel and deal, whatever, and what can I say? And so that's how I know that this building used to be a federal building. But then we have another federal building on the other end of downtown. So it was already, by that time, even in the late 1980s, going into the early 1990s, it was already closed for business. This was the area, this whole area was known as the Bottoms, because it was down this hill. And also, it's Ledbetter Heights was the name for it. And then also, and I don't know the difference, the geographical barrier between what used to be Allendale and Ledbetter Heights. But whatever. But the Bottoms, all this, even back where I was, it was all there was a geographical thing where they attempted, let me roll this back up. They attempted a red light district, meaning that the activity that you do there might still be illegal. But we're not going to regularly patrol that area. We're not approving it or decriminalizing it. But these are the areas that we're going to highly patrol. And if you really want to avoid some legal BS, stay within that zone, and we'll patrol there a lot less. And so ironic that where I live now is called a choice neighborhood. There were federal grants given to this choice neighborhood initiative for neighborhood approval. And so ironic. It's where I began my adulthood, hanging out, partying right here on this block, because I wasn't yet old enough to get into some of the clubs. I was old enough to drink. I wasn't old enough to buy liquor. It was a weird thing. I could go to daiquiri shops, things like that. I could legally drink at home. Private clubs, I could get in by paying private clubs. There was a loophole that I could be 18 and pay, and then wouldn't have to wait until I was 21. But a lot of partying went on right here, especially since I was gay. And this, they called it a meat rack. I don't know. Really wasn't much meat it on the rack, if you know what I'm saying. But that's, yeah. It used to be a lot more scandalous, but not really. It's just where people hung out. And then, let's see. Yeah, people would do this thing. They would just, I don't know, People would park, people would cruise, people would look around, and you'd meet up and everything. This was in, what was I, like 18, 19 years old or something like that. Just really shouldn't have been doing it. I wasn't, like, I'm walking around now, talking about I should have known better. I'm walking around now for exercise and reflection, a whole different purpose as to the way I lived my life. Then all I wanted to do was network, meet people, have fun. I had some ideas of who I was and where I wanted to go and blah blah blah, and this whole I want to be me, my independent kind of self, and want to be able to. I want the freedom of expression that a young gay man did not really have in Shreveport, say in 1989, 1990, 1991. You didn't really have that unless you found yourself, with the group of, I don't know, there was like a little subculture or whatever, but it's predominantly at that time we were very fundamentally Baptist. We didn't even have casinos or anything like that. So anything anything that was different, anything that was different, you actually had to speak of it in whispers, and you couldn't talk about it. I remember, kind of beginning the idea of coming out to my family. And my sister was the first one that I came out to, but she was cool with it. But and my parents had a different reaction. But they were older, and it wasn't a prejudice that they were reacting to. It was a fear, because they knew of the prejudice of the city that I lived in. And then, of course, my mother was a fundamentally religious person, of the, fundamental Baptist background. And, of course, you get a lot of fear-based teaching in that. And so her reaction, volatile as it was, they're still reacting to, hey, this is, homosexuality. It's kind of a, it's a sickness and mental illness, even though it had been, like, we just didn't get the message down here. It's kind of like, like it had been declassified from being a mental illness since the 70s, and basically had been decriminalized since the 70s, except for in cases where people are, it was decriminalized, but not yet like illegal. It wasn't going to hold up in federal, but local, actually locally, there's still some places that can bust you for being gay and maybe trying to pick somebody up or something like that. You can get arrested for trying to meet somebody in public, not even necessarily having sex in public. That's not what I'm talking about. Just on the street, if I meet somebody and kind of wink and give a little flirtation, it's like, if I'm in the wrong part of Louisiana, I could get arrested for that, for cruising, even if the intention is to go back to my place or their place, but you don't really have that anymore. You have the apps that you can go to if you want to meet people or something like that. But I mean, I'm not really in that frame of mind these days anyway. And besides, as it turns out, they're not really my kind of people. But yeah, man. But no, where was it? Oh yes, right here. This was the right across the street. The sign's still there. Let's look at it. this was the Greyhound bus station. And what was cool about it is that there was a little, I could come here in the daytime or anytime, and they made, when buses were coming in and stuff like that, they would make a really good fried chicken. One of the best fried chickens took place right here. Those ladies knew how to cook, let me tell you. Those sisters could, yeah, they could do it. So, and then, yeah, they closed our city bus. This closed down, and there was a terminal. You've seen me walk around that terminal. There used to be right in the middle of downtown. Both of these very convenient for downtown, but they actually moved it right next to the police station, the city police station. And that's kind of cool. They can kind of keep an eye on things there and all that. But guess what? That police station's in need of repair. They're about to. They're setting up different substations and the city courthouse and everything like that. So all that's going to end up moving in the next couple of years. So, go figure, right? Okay, so, yeah. But this was cool. It was really great. It was really fun to come here. And that was I'm a weird guy. I like bus stations, all right? But yeah, I would, if you happen to be downtown and that you wanted to go grab some quick food and you didn't have a lot of money, you could go to that diner in the bus station and get some food. But yeah, so this at one point was St. John's, I think. Let's go over here and look at. I know at one point it was St. Mark's. It's called Holy Trinity Catholic Church. If I were Catholic, I'd attend here. It's close enough. But I want to say, I don't know. And then there's, I don't know what those offices are. I don't know if people live there. There's a light on up there or not. I don't know if, Yeah, I'm not Catholic. And I don't think I could ever subscribe to Catholicism. But I admire the beauty of Mass and the rituals and everything like that go along with it, because I'm a very, I don't know, ceremonious kind of person. I think that I think some of that is very beautiful. Why would it not beautiful and grand? With all those queens and frocks that they have roaming around. Yeah. So, established in 1856, and I'm reading this marker here. Established in 1856, Holy Trinity was moved to this site in 1858. 5 of its priests lost their lives treating the victims of the yellow fever epidemic of 1873. So, the present church in Romanesque Revival style was built in 1896. So this isn't the original structure. And maybe this isn't the St. John's that I was thinking of. I don't know. But that neighborhood was known as St. John's Bottoms, and also the Bottoms, and Ledbetter Heights, same neighborhood. And I don't think it's the same neighborhood as Allendale. I think Allendale is that area that's just past that, But I think it was just the reason why it was called the Bottoms on Ledbetter Heights and everything like that is the area that they said, hey, and I forget exactly what it is, but it was the red light that what you're doing is illegal, but it's not in our regular patrolling keep that shit away from the good people of downtown Shreveport. Or back then, maybe it was just Shreveport. Maybe it wasn't downtown. You know, this whole area was established by Henry Miller Shreve. He and his crew, he was a riverboatman and a sailor and everything. And his purpose was to break the great log jam on the Red River so that it could clear the passage for shipping. You know, and that's how Shreveport was established. And of course, it's less of a port city because that's just, yeah, we're not a port city anymore. But we started out that way. And of course, Henry Miller Shreve, you know, the reason why large boats have staterooms, well, that was because Henry Miller decided to, or whatever, he was the one that initiated calling the cabins aboard ships staterooms. And they're staterooms because they were initially named after the states, the United States. Hang on one second. So, it's relatively weird that I'm standing right there and the guy walks straight towards me instead of walking to the side. We do get weirdos. And I say that in a loving way. I say that in a loving way because what it is that we're all out here. I'm out here walking around on video. You know, everybody just wants to make some sort of connection. And sometimes people will come near you, and especially if they're in the neighborhood and they live outside, or you know, sometimes they just want a human interaction. Sometimes they don't want a dollar or a cigarette. Sometimes they just want to be seen. Sometimes they just don't want to be invisible. And I know this from firsthand because I've been candid about this. I've been there. To be candid, I've been here, you know. I've lived outside. It's probably why I love living downtown. I love the fact that I live in a city, but I've always loved living in a city. And there were, you know, for a long time growing up, I was raised in a very small town, Amelia, Louisiana. And I'm talking about, like, in my mind, I don't recall that we had a traffic light. There was a main street, but I don't think the area that was Amelia, I don't recall that it had a traffic light. I could be wrong. I don't know. We lived in a trailer next to a White House. Our landlord and lady, they lived across the street, the main street, and they had a side street that we started walking and would kind of end into like a dirt path, and that was the bayou that we swam in all the time and fished in all the time. And the teens and the adults and the bigger boys and girls, whatever, would dive from this cliff into this swimming area. And it's also the same place where we fished. And there were deadly things there. We would fish and we would catch eels sometimes, electric eels that would swim, because it's like so close to the Gulf and everything. It's you know, it's sometimes stuff from the ocean would get in, you know, so yeah. But it was, in those days, running around barefoot, catching frogs with your bare hands at night, and yeah, it was very, you know, wonderful, very wonderful. Moved down there when I was 6, right before I turned 7. As a matter of fact, we lived in Patterson. It's a town called Patterson. My father worked in the shop. I don't know what he did, but we lived above the shop. And there was a neat little passage from the bedroom closet in my parents' bedroom. There was a closet and a stairway in the back of that closet that went into the downstairs shop, and it may have been some sort of mechanic shop or something. I don't know. It was some sort of shop. I don't know, but I loved it. We had a birthday. I remember getting a gun that shot these little discs, these little round plastic discs, and then shortly after, well, when we first moved down there, we stayed with uh, my grandmother's brother, who was we called him Uncle Ray, and his wife Louise, and their sons. Um, their teenage sons, and then they had a daughter that lived down there also, and her son was one of my best friends in school, and they lived in the White House, and so yeah, we were in the same grade at school, but our parents wouldn't let us be in the same class because we'd be hellraisers, you know. But we were tight. We were kind of close, you know. But